So the people from the neighborhood all come in to the coffee shop, buy coffee. They see the gym, there's big windows, and they get interested. Without fail, probably, I want to say almost daily, we convert a coffee shop customer to a martial arts student.
Welcome to Forever White Belt. I'm your host, Adolfo Foronda. Today, we're excited to have Robert Donofrio. Robert is a black belt under the renowned Rob Kahn and the owner of Gracie Brandon in Florida, where he's built one of the most thriving Jiu Jitsu communities around, with over 700 students at his academy. Not only has Robert competed at the highest levels, but he's also created an incredible space that combines top-tier training with unique amenities, including an in-house coffee shop that contributes to the academy's success and strong community vibe. Robert's dedication extends beyond the mat, as seen in his fantastic social media content that showcases the art and discipline of jiu-jitsu in high-quality, accessible ways. In this episode, we discuss his journey, the keys to growing a successful academy, and the powerful sense of community he's built at Gracie Brandon. If you're into jiu-jitsu or just curious about running a thriving academy, you won't want to miss this conversation. And with that, I give you Robert Donofrio. Robbie, welcome to the show, man.
All right, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I am looking forward to this. There's so much to talk to you about. You're such a unique individual. You're the full 360 martial artist, man.
Yes, sir.
You've had such an interesting history in terms of like your beginnings in jiu-jitsu, your competition. I know you were ADCC trials winner, brown belt, I believe it was 2013.
Yep. No, you did your homework.
Opened an academy. You're doing amazing work there. Your online stuff, your social stuff that you're doing now is incredible. It's really great to have you on the show. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
You started when you were like 21. You're now 41, correct? How's that feel?
Man, I feel old. I got a ton of injuries, so I don't train as much as I used to, but I do still train, like 3-4 times a week, but I can't go hard like I did in my 20s.
You're a black belt under Rob Kahn, correct?
That's
Who
correct.
was Hoist Gracie's first black belt, correct?
Yes, he was one of the first 5. So he gave out 5 black belts, and Rob was one of them.
So what was that like, your experience with Rob?
Man, Rob was amazing, especially back when I first started. It was like a god amongst men. He was actually, a lot of people don't really know, but he was really one of the first guys to take the gi off. And I'm not saying first guy to take the gi off, like literally, but a lot of guys back then, when they were doing no-gi jiu-jitsu, they were basically just teaching gi without the gi on. And Rob was really a pioneer in that he changed it up and taught very specific no-gi techniques. It was like him, Eddie Bravo was also doing it at that time, but, not a whole lot of other guys, probably like Danaher and guys like that up in New York. But, Rob was really good with the no-gi jiu-jitsu. He hated the gi, just wanted to train no-gi. So I mostly did no-gi. He was a great instructor. Me and him got along really well. I don't know that I would have stuck to it if it wasn't for Rob.
And where was that? Was that in like Pennsylvania?
Oh, Tampa, Florida.
In Florida, okay.
Yeah, I lived in Pennsylvania. I went to high school there. Grew up in New York. Went to high school in Pennsylvania. Joined the Air Force. Was stationed in Florida up on the Panhandle. And when I was in the Air Force, I started dating a girl towards the end of my service who was
Blue belt, right?
Blue belt in jiu-jitsu, yeah. And then she kind of showed me some stuff, and then after that, I got out and I moved to Tampa because my parents had moved to Tampa while I was in the Air Force. So the first thing I did was find Rob.
So when did you get this notion to open up Gracie Brandon?
In 2008, I started teaching full-time at Rob's gym at Gracie Tampa. When I started jiu-jitsu, I sort of had a talent for it. I had a knack for it. So I was quickly doing really well, and I fell in love with it. I moved into the gym, literally. I slept on the mats. I trained or taught or whatever for like 12 hours a day. And, it wasn't that I was like, broke and didn't have a place to live. It was just like, I didn't feel a need to get an apartment. I was a single guy and I just trained, and that's all I wanted to do anyway.
You were just obsessed.
I was obsessed. Yeah. Only thing I wanted to do was jiu-jitsu. So I'm like, what do I need an apartment for? So it was, either crashing at some girl's house or I was sleeping on the mats. That's how it ended up. And then, over time, I started winning a lot of competitions, especially locally, beating guys I wasn't supposed to beat. Because I was winning a lot of competitions and I was teaching, I started getting a lot of private sessions. So I was literally booked with private sessions a lot. And then started doing pretty well financially. And then decided to open up in Brandon, which is like about 35-minute drive from the original gym, Rob's original gym. And opened up there and took off, man. I had about 150 students the first month.
Wow.
It was, yeah,
That's
it was
incredible.
yeah. And then I've been in 3 locations since then. So I ended up opening the gym, and it officially opened in 2012.
Mm.
And then, moved a couple locations, and now we're in this one, and I opened a coffee shop and connected it to the gym in 2020. And that boosted our memberships like insane. Right, it was crazy because right when I opened the gym, I made it to ADCC. Like I opened the gym, and like 3 or 4 months later, I won the trials.
Oh.
And then they flew me to China, and I competed in ADCC there.
So you opened the gym as a brown belt then?
Yeah,
Well,
which was
okay.
not unheard of back then.
No. I remember purple belts were doing that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've heard like numbers of like you've got like 700 plus students, something like that, right?
Yeah, anywhere from 6 to 7 on any
That's
given,
incredible. It's incredible.
6 to 700. Yeah.
Amazing, man.
Thank you.
And you mentioned the coffee shop, which is very interesting. As you know, as most people know, that was like sort of the internet sensation for when you released that. And I think it's still gathering a lot of interest, and people are very interested in it as well. What's really interesting about the coffee shop is that it's, I want to say adjacent to the academy, but it feels like it's almost part of the academy in a way, because you can go back and forth. There's like this window where you can see everything. I understand that you're actually using it almost as a front desk as well. Like you have the coffee people checking people in, and
yeah.
Can you talk about that whole experience and the idea of it, the inception of it?
Yeah. So during COVID, I had to shut down the gym. Everyone did. And, none of us knew our future. Like, is it ever going to open back up? We were all kind of scared. And I have a really good friend, Tom Quigley. In 2019, he was opening up this coffee shop. So he was building it out. He had the idea of calling it Chill Coffee. Like, it's his brand. So I didn't have anything to do during COVID. So I was just going up, and he was allowed to stay open because he served food there. I was going up to his coffee shop every morning, just hanging out with him, because his opening day was the day everything shut down. So it was like, what luck he had, and it was, I felt bad, but I really wanted to help my friend Tom out. So I was going up there every morning, buying coffee. And it's not just coffee, it's euphoric teas, it's kava. We also have CBD products and food. And, coffee is actually the thing we probably sell the least of. Yeah.
He's doing like pastries and stuff too?
Yeah, well, so it's just like your regular coffee shop. What I didn't want to do was cater it too much towards Jiu Jitsu students. So it wasn't like I was going to be super healthy with everything, because the goal is for the community to come in and then hopefully turn into martial arts students. So, it's crazy. When I was going up to his coffee shop, hanging out with him all day, my friends were coming and supporting him. And then he started doing pretty well with it. So I started looking at the numbers. He started showing me what he was doing. And I was like, man, this is awesome, And then we thought about opening one up, just another one in Riverview where I'm at, just kind of like thinking about what I'm going to do with my life if the gym never opens back up. And then everything started opening back up, and I dropped my kids off at the daycare one day. And the daycare, there used to be this Taekwondo gym next to the daycare that was there for like 20 years. They went out of business. So that spot was open, and I was like, I got to get this spot because it's the perfect spot, because it's right outside this gigantic housing development. So like if you leave this housing development, you have to pass by my coffee shop. You have to.
Right. And that's when they were like giving away spots, basically. They were so desperate, right?
So I got a great deal on it. And it was perfect because the way it was set up, it was 3 bays, 3 storefronts. So I made one storefront the coffee shop, and the other 2 are their gym. Now, man, there were so many naysayers when I was doing this.
Yeah, I would have been one of them. Yeah.
Everyone was like, you shouldn't do this. This is too much of a risk. We don't know what's going to happen.
We've seen a million coffee shops go under.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that. I'll address that here in a minute. But so anyway, we said, you know what? Let's fucking do it. Let's open a coffee shop. We'll connect it to the gym. I already had a few hundred members. I had like 250 at the time. Well, shit, when COVID happened, it dropped down to like 50, and then they can't coming back. So by the time we decided to do the coffee shop, I had like between 2 and 250, and we did it. We opened the coffee shop, but a lot of people were like, "You should open a smoothie shop." But you know what? Smoothie shops don't make shit. They are the worst business model ever. If you notice, smoothie shops now all sell food. They all do like meals and shit now. So anyway, so we did it, man. I invested a ton of money into it, and we opened the coffee shop, and it was a big hit, man. A couple different things that it offers you is like, for example, my gym. So Chill Coffee pays for its own rent, right? So it's a third of it because it's 1/3 of the place. So it pays a third of the rent. But the gym pays its own rent, right? But because I have the coffee shop where people can congregate, the gym is nothing but mat. So I have a huge mat space in a small spot. And then if you need to go congregate, you go into the coffee shop. So I'm paying less for a huge mat space. Also, the coffee shop is open to the public. That's its own thing. Matter of fact, if you want to come to my gym, you have to walk through the coffee shop. So it's open to the public. So the people from the neighborhood all come in to the coffee shop, buy coffee. They see the gym. There's big windows, and they get interested. Without fail, probably, I want to say almost daily, we convert a coffee shop customer to a martial arts student.
That's incredible.
So, which is great because I save money on the rent. I save money on advertising because I don't have to do a ton of different ads. This because a lot of it is word of mouth and a lot of it is just the local community. We also do markets. So we have a list of and we have 50 vendors. We have a big parking lot, and these vendors come out. We have live music, and it's right in front of the gym and the coffee shop, and the whole community comes. And I end up getting students that way as well.
Wow.
So it really worked out in a lot of different ways. Plus, obviously, it's a plus for the parents. During my kids' classes, the parents sit in the coffee shop. They make friends in there. They don't want to leave. They don't want their kids to quit because this is their time. They get to be away from their kid for an hour.
Right, and they're buying stuff.
They're buying stuff. They're having fun. And I have CBD products. I have THC products as well. It's not a smoke shop, but we have kind of smoke shop items. We don't have like bongs and stuff, but we got a couple vape pens. We got like pre-rolls, just a small little section. It's not overwhelming. And we have a powder we have a THC powder and we have a CBD powder, and we can infuse any one of your drinks with it. So you can get an infused drink. It's sort of like this idea because I feel like people are going to the bars less and less.
Yes. In fact, I saw a graph that actually shows the inversion has sort of happened now. The trend, especially among younger people with alcohol, is on the decline, and CBD and the green type of products are on their way up.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted a place for people to go. It's a bar, but you could drink kratom tea, which is great. It's a euphoric tea. You definitely get high on it, but not in a way that's disorienting, just like a good chill vibe, And you can do the THC stuff, the CBD stuff. You can have coffee. It's a really cool area. I have a big couch in there. It's really good. So the martial arts students use the coffee shop, and then the neighborhood comes and also uses the coffee shop. So I'm getting more money out of the current jiu-jitsu students because they're also spending money in the coffee shop. I also don't have an office. I sign people up in the coffee shop. If you just have an MMA gym and somebody comes in there for information, they've never done MMA before, but they're curious. They're always scared. They don't know what to expect. They think they have to come in and fight in a cage day one. But when they come into my gym, it's a coffee shop. It's chill. They don't come in with those expectations. They're like, oh, these are normal people. So the sign up is easier. The close is way easier. Plus it's cool. It's a gym and a coffee shop. I want to be a part of this. I'm selling the camaraderie. I'm selling the friendships. The jiu-jitsu is great too. I love jiu-jitsu. I'm a jiu-jitsu nerd, but that's secondary to what we actually do.
Just a reminder to please give us a 5-star review on Apple Music and Spotify and become a VIP member for only 99 cents a month. Get ad-free episodes at anchor.fm/foreverwhitebelt/subscribe, and check us out on Instagram at Forever White Belt Show. Go buy your Forever White Belt swag at Teespring, teespring.com/forever-white-belt. Check us out on YouTube now at Forever White Belt. Finally, if you ever get to beautiful Northern California, please come roll with us at North Bay Jiu Jitsu in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. They're amazing instructors and everyone there are great people. Mention the podcast and get 2 weeks free.
I love that you can be like a lurker and just come in, not even a lurker, whatever you might want to call it, someone who's anxious about, as you mentioned, MMA or even jiu-jitsu. Some people are nervous about that. And they can come in for several different days, just have a coffee and observe casually and not be worried about being judged or anything like that. And then you convert.
Yeah. And, it's pretty easy to convert. I spend my mornings. That's what I do. I get up in the morning. I'll work out and I'll go sit at the coffee shop because I love my people there. I love hanging out there. And when customers come in, I chat with them. Without fail, either they want to try a class or their kids or their grandkids, whatever it is. I sit there and I sell people all day and do work on the computer and hang out and I train and we got a shower in there. So I spend my days there. It's fun. I have a great life because of it, And my coffee shop employees know how to deal with a walk-in. So if I get a customer that walks in, they go to the coffee shop, they either set an appointment or they get a sign up, and I give them a commission if they sign up somebody. So I don't have to staff the gym all day. Like a lot of people have to have somebody working there 8 hours a day. I don't need to have that. I have my coffee shop people that do it. So it's my overhead for the gym is insanely low, but I bill really high. So it works out amazing this way. I've gotten people messaging me saying, oh, that this guy has a coffee shop in his gym. This guy has a coffee shop in his gym. Yes, but typically what they are little coffee shop stands that sell coffee to the students. Look, if you're not what I'm doing something that's like, I went from 250 members to 700. The only thing I changed was I made a coffee shop. So if you want it to work that way, I have that blueprint. I put a video out, my second coffee shop video, where I'm getting a bunch of leads for that. So we're working on getting that done pretty soon. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be really cool. I think this could revolutionize the way people do martial arts gyms, dance studios, yoga studios, the whole thing, because you were right. Opening a coffee shop by itself, you're gonna lose. I mean, we went all around Florida, all different states, and went to all the local coffee shops to see how they're doing it. And some of them are funny. Like, a lot of these people want to brew their own coffee. They want to brew their own beans, spend thousands of dollars on this big machine that, to roast, and then they buy their beans. And the thing about brewing coffee, it's an art. It's an art. And the people in Colombia already figured it out. You're not going to make better coffee than them. You're just not. So without fail, the coffee tastes like shit. And then the next thing you know, a few months later, they're out of business. If you want to make money with a coffee shop, you got to sell 1,000 to 2,000 cups of coffee a day. It's insane. But we have the Kratom tea, which costs $13 a cup. We sell the powder in a jar, which is $250. We have grab and go items. I mean, believe it or not, I make a ton of money on lollipops for kids. Ice cream. I got a meal company called Whole Body Fuel, and they stock our fridge with microwavable meals. Really good ones too. Like, it's very fresh. They're not a huge company, so they make the food down the street from us, and we stock our fridge. You throw it in the microwave for a couple minutes, you have a nice meal. So I got people hanging out there from 6 a.m. all the way till the night classes. Just eating the meals, drinking the coffee, doing the jiu-jitsu. We are a huge family. Everyone's very close. I think that's a huge aspect of what the coffee shop can add to your gym.
For someone who's publicly stated before that they got into a lot of trouble in their youth and, some arrests when you were younger, and who's now publicly sober, how did you develop into this entrepreneur? Did you always have this mindset? Were you the lemonade stand kid, or, expand on that?
A little bit when I was younger. I was born and raised in New York City until I was 16. And my parents decided to move us to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which was like Amish country. It was a huge culture shock for me as a teenager. And I rebelled tremendously. I was very upset that I had to live there. Didn't want to live there. Started doing drugs, the drinking, the wrong crowd, the whole thing. I got pretty bad with the drugs and alcohol as a teenager. And then to get out of that life, I joined the Air Force. And it was like literally, I turned 18 and left a few days later. And then lo and behold, I was doing okay there. But I ended up getting stationed in like Party Central, like the Panhandle, Panama City, Florida. It was like freaking spring break every day on the beach. Like the worst place me at the time could have been stationed. So, I got big into drinking. I drank a lot. I'm an addict, man. I have that personality. I have that switch in my head. I get hooked on things. And then one day somebody comes over with some cocaine. I'm already drunk. I do it. I get caught on the piss test a few days later. Long story from there. I spent a year waiting to go to trial for this. And then they tacked on more charges, grand larceny, because when they made me move back in the dorms, they kept paying me as if I lived off base, which I did at the time, and I didn't say anything. So they tacked on grand larceny. They were trying to put me away for as long as possible, make me an example, During that time, I met a girl who did jujitsu, and I moved into her house because I couldn't move off base by myself, but she lived off base. Moved into her house. She was I couldn't sign up at a gym at the time because I didn't have any money. She showed me some stuff, nothing major, but I got really into watching the old UFCs and the old Pride fights. I didn't even understand what competition jiu-jitsu was. I just kind of thought MMA. And, I ended up getting sentenced. I served 9 months in military prison. And the moment I got out, I had to come to Tampa. My parents had moved from Pennsylvania to Tampa. So I had nowhere to go. I had to go there. So I go to Tampa, living with my parents. I got nothing going for me. And I had some emotional issues, man. I mean, that wasn't easy going through that. And I had a hard time keeping a job. Had a hard time with authority at the time. Kind of an anger thing where you're just kind of pissed off. And so I couldn't keep a job. It wasn't like I wouldn't work. I just would have a job for a few months, either quit or get fired or not show up and then get a different job. So, I mean, I've worked everywhere. Then I started training. First thing I did once I had enough money was I signed up for jiu-jitsu, and I met Rob Kahn. And Rob was my type of guy. He was like a shit talker, really fun to be around, a real cool guy. The people worshiped the ground he walked on back then. And I really needed a mentor like that in my life at the time. And, at the time, I didn't have a whole lot of people believing in me. I got kicked out of high school, expelled, managed to get a diploma and join the Air Force, then was kicked out of that. Served time in jail. I wasn't, nobody thought
You
I was
most likely to succeed, for
right.
sure.
Exactly. And, Rob believed in me. He really did. When I was a white belt, he said, I'll never forget the day. He said, you know what, man, one day you're going to make it to ADCC. I remember that day because I remember I was like, man, this guy actually thinks I can do something. Nobody else in my life thought that. So I clung to it. I was like, I can't let this guy down. I have to train. And I loved it. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I trained constantly. I became obsessed. Didn't do the drugs or the drinking anymore and just train. I fell in love with jiu-jitsu and then started competing and started doing really well locally. I wish that I had the money back then to fly to California. Everything was in California back then. So it was hard to get out to the IBJJFs and those major tournaments. So I would compete in a lot of local tournaments, but the local tournaments here were stacked. It was always me, Matt Arroyo, Cyborg, Popovich, Daniel Marias, all these killers. Buchecha, no one knew who Buchecha was until he submitted Daniel Marias at the local tournament here in Tampa. They would do a $1,000 absolute. Every month there would be one. So that's where I competed mostly, was at that. And then we did Grappler. Yeah, we did Grappler's Quest, and that was pretty much it. And then I did the trials in Ohio in 2012. ended it. To be honest with you, it was like probably one of the easiest tournaments that that I did. Yeah, because I was used to competing against like Cyborg and Popovich and these like absolute killers. I go into the trials and it's like, I don't know who this guy is. Easy tap. This guy had 4 matches, ended up winning the whole thing, and they flew me to China, and that was an experience, man. That was interesting. I'll never go back to China, but no, not a fun place. But that's the story, man. That's how it went.
So now let's touch a little bit on your social content. It has an interesting focus. You're doing what I'm seeing some people have some really good success with in terms of just focusing on white and blue belts. Talk about your thought process behind that and why you went for that segment and your execution of all this stuff.
Well, it's actually pretty simple. So Jiu Jitsu is, from my understanding, from what I was told by whoever, is the second most fastest growing sport in the world, next to pickleball. Okay?
Yeah,
So
pickleball.
it's
Yeah.
on the rise. And you know as well as I do, how many people that sign up at Jiu Jitsu make it to black belt? What's the percentage? Like next to none. How many even make it to purple belt? Not that many. What, 1 out of 1,000 maybe? So most of the Jiu Jitsu community are white belts. Most of the people doing are white belts. Most of the content out there is black belts teaching black belts. High level techniques that are confusing. And I remember I would get white belts that would come in and be like, I saw this dude do this technique, and it's like some inversion into the back, into the leg. And then it's like, which I love that stuff. I personally do it, but it wasn't good for my students to be learning that. So I decided to really funnel my content towards the majority, which is white belts. And they need it. They need someone guiding them in the right directions. A lot of the jiu-jitsu instructors out there are just not great at guiding their students, So I went that route, and it's working out tremendously for me. Just came out with an instructional, easy way to get from white to blue belt called the Blue Belt Bible. It's very straightforward, simple techniques that a white belt can do right away. You watch these instructionals and I watch them like crazy, like the John Danaher, the Gordon Ryan. They're great. I love them. I'm as a black belt. I think they're wonderful. But bro, it's a lot. You're teaching these guys 15 hours of technique on one position. I've gotten guys that come in, I watched the whole John Danaher structure. Okay, great. Let's roll. And they suck. They're like, you can't. You got to start somewhere. So I leave a lot out in my instructional. I give them a few key things to focus on and tell them to focus on these things and then move on once they master that. And I think that's important for that level.
I hear that you're incorporating a lot of the ecological type of training now. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great, man. I love that method. I love that method of teaching. And since we've incorporated it, we've gotten people much better, much quicker.
So you are seeing like direct results.
100%. 100%, man. Because you have some students, like you'll have a student come in and they start training. And some are really good right away. They pick up on all the steps.
Right. They're naturals.
They're naturals, Other people are not. I mean, I've seen the total opposite of that spectrum. The guy that can pick it up quick is a guy that knows how to fill in the blanks, right? Like he could look at a technique, and because I could teach a technique in 5 steps, or I could teach the same technique in 100 steps if I want to be super like detailed, So the guys that are good fill in the blanks. The guys that don't have the ability to fill in the blanks need a little bit more direction. And I think that ecological training gives them that, because you're not saying, go roll with this guy, try to submit him while he tries to submit you. That's too vast, So it's like, okay, we're on mount. All I want you to be able to do is get the person's hand to touch the mat, whether it's this way, whether it's this way. If you can do that, you win. Guy on bottom, work your mount, escapes. If you can get to half guard or a full guard position, you win. And you teach them a couple different ways to keep those positions, but you allow them to fill in the blanks. You allow them to figure out the best way to get the hand to the mat. And then from there, okay, now you know how to get the hand to touch the mat. Great. Now let's talk about the S mount. getting into S mount or going into an arm triangle or getting a regular, whatever it is, a triangle from mount. And it helps because you're not teaching them, okay, first you're going to pin the hand to the mat and then you're going to come around and do this. And then you're going to make sure of this and do that. And then it's like, go, rather than, okay, you've already know how to do this step. Like, let's now do S mount, 100 times. And then we'll do the drill again. And if you get to S mount, that's a win. And then it's like, okay, after you've gotten to S mount a bunch of times, it's okay, let's extend the arm. Boom. You've now gotten an arm bar from mount. And I think that's a much better way to approach jiu-jitsu. Because I think a lot of times, like a lot of coming up in jiu-jitsu, I've learned from a lot of different people. And it always felt like the instructor is sort of putting on this performance. It's sort of this competition between instructors on like who can be more detail oriented. And, it's confusing. Like it's a lot of, like they'll sit there and they'll teach for like, they'll talk for like 20 minutes straight. And it's like, it just doesn't work, right? So, my instruction when I teach class is like short and sweet, to the point, and then we're doing those ecological type drills, which I love. You can really play with that and come up with your own drills that you think make sense,
It's got to be endless, right? Yeah.
It's endless. It absolutely is endless. And it makes the guy that typically would take 2 years to get to blue belt, get there in 6 months, no problem. So I love it. In the beginning, when I started doing my social media, like hateful comments, I was like, you start questioning yourself. Like, did I do that move right? Should I be teaching? Like, you start questioning yourself, but then you realize no matter what you put up there, people are going to hate it.
How'd you feel about that? Like when you were coming into it, because as I mentioned before with, people our age and I would say of that era, it wasn't really popularized to put yourself out there in that way. And in fact, you would take a lot of arrows for doing such a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, man. I was not easy.
You seem very comfortable in front of camera and speaking.
Well, I do enjoy doing it now. A lot of editing too. Don't get me wrong. We do a lot of editing. No, it was nerve-wracking at first because I had 400 followers on Instagram, like, 5 months ago.
Wow.
We grew it from 400 to now we're at 45,000.
Incredible.
I got 56,000 on Facebook and I got 45,000 on TikTok, and I got about 11,000 YouTube subscribers. So it's like over 100 and something thousand across all the platforms. At first I was really, really sensitive to it. Like I'd put a video out, I was nerve wracking. Like, oh no, he's going to post it. Cause I don't do it. I have a marketing team that I work with and they come up with all the hooks and I'm just a dancing monkey. I do the moves and then they do the filming and they do the hooks. So like throughout the month though, I'll come up with some hooks too. Like I'll come up with some ideas. I send them to them and then they reword them and we do the content that way. And at first I made one video that got so much hate, dude. And it was like taken completely out of context. We do a video like every time we film. Okay, your biggest pet peeve in jiu-jitsu. So I listed like 10 different pet peeves and I just ramble. So what I do is because I like to rant, I'll rant, and then they'll edit it and put what they think is good together. And I don't even know what's going to be released until they release it. Like I have no idea what video is going to be posted today. It's whatever it is. And I had said something about how a lot of times when females come into jiu-jitsu and they roll and at first they're like nervous and they do a lot of giggling. And then, and
that's
then
a time bomb.
Bro, it was so bad. Because I was like, when a girl does that at my gym, I usually go to them when they first start rolling and they're like super giggly. It's because they're nervous. They're nervous. They're like, it's so close. They got some dudes sweating on them.
Right. I've seen dudes do this.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of times with the giggling, it's the girls. Like that's a very common way for them to express their nervous energy. So I usually go to them and I say, listen, it's okay. You don't have to worry. No one expects anything out of you. Just try the moves you're learning. And, whoever you're rolling with will help you. And I just kind of put them at ease. And then usually that dies down. They get into it and everything's good. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes I'll get the females that just will never, throughout their whole jiu-jitsu journey, they just giggle and laugh the entire time they're rolling. Okay. Now, it's fine. to do that. I don't really care that much. But I just mentioned it as a pet peeve, and the way that videos turned out just made me look like I hate women, and it was terrible. But dude, I got like 10,000 followers from that video. So it wasn't bad. It was fine. And then, nobody freaking cares. Nobody remembers that. So yeah, the comment section was tough in the beginning, but now it's pretty good. No big deal.
I love one of the things that I've heard you mention before too is that when you open your academy, let's say you're a black belt, and you open it up, and a lot of these people tend to think they need to have all these championships, they need to be a world champion and all this stuff. When I've always argued, I meet people that come in, they don't know if they're walking into karate or what this even is,
Yeah.
so there's no context really. They're just like, hey, you're close by. I want to do a martial art
Yes.
and I'm here to do whatever this is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't, well, depends on what perspective you're looking at it from, but if you want to be a business owner and actually make money, you can't focus on making world champions. That's ridiculous. Like, think about it. How many people are going to actually be a world champion? Like, next to none. So you got to focus on what the people want, what the community wants, Most people, my favorite student is like the 45-year-old dude that pays his membership every month, trains 2-3 times a week, makes some friends, loves Jiu Jitsu, and is a fun guy to talk to. That's my favorite student. That's what most of my students are. It's that guy, He's like a lawyer or something and pays his dues on time. But the worst is the guy that comes in and says he wants to be a UFC fighter. The membership never goes through. They're broke. They think they're going to be a UFC champion when I know as well as anyone else they're not going to be. And they demand so much time.
They're beating up the lawyers that you're referring to.
Yeah, exactly. They have attitudes, like they're usually screwed up somehow. So I don't love that type of student. Now, I love competition jiu-jitsu. I love it. So I like to train a competition team. And and the only reason, there's only one reason I do it. And it's because I love it. It has nothing to do with business.
Well, isn't it a personal goal of yours to have at least one being ADCC champion?
Yeah, that's a personal goal, but it has nothing to do with money. And no, I don't care about money with it. If anything, I spend more money on these guys than I get.
I call it like a lost leader. Yeah.
Yeah. I like when we go to competitions, I'm buying their plane tickets. I'm buying their food. Like, I have no problem with that. I love these guys. These guys are like my kids, especially one of my students, Ian. He's like my main black belt instructor. He's been with me since he was 13 years old. And, a matter of fact, he trained at Gracie Tampa at 8 years old. Well, and then came with me to Brandon. And, he's been teaching my kids program since he was 14. And, he's like a son to me. And I want him to be, and he's incredible at jiu-jitsu. Incredible. If only he could put it together as well as he does in the gym on stage, That's what we're working on with him. But realistically, I got about 5 or 6 guys that I think could make it there, could actually win that tournament. And then, like a slew of other guys that are amazing training partners for those guys. And, we do our competition team training, and it's hard though. It's hard because these guys also typically have to have a job. Hard for them to train twice a day like they should be and train like a professional athlete.
Yeah.
And then
you really have to be.
You really have to be at this point. I had a guy ended up he was incredibly promising. Like, this guy really could have made it all the way. And it got to the point where he was winning a lot of stuff, and it got to the point where he was like, look, man, I don't make any money. Like, I can't continue to do this, because he had other opportunities come his way. And it was really upsetting to me in a way. Like, I was like, man, I'm going to lose this guy, but I get it. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
And he left the sport completely. Like, he moved to Colombia because he had a girlfriend there, and he was able to make a lot of money.
And you can live like a king there. Yeah, totally.
Live like a king. And especially with the economy and inflation, it's hard for these guys to live. So that's the struggle when it comes to trying to build a team to compete at a high level in jiu-jitsu. That's the biggest struggle, is these guys can't live. I think what I want to do at some point, relatively soon is buy a 5-bedroom house, put these guys up, live for free, stock it with healthy food, even have a van, transport them to training, make it so they don't have to work if they don't want to, but they can do like a weekend job if they want, and, build a team that way. Because, it's hard to do organic.
I was just talking to Adele Fornorina, who's just won double gold at ADCC, the one you were at, and she's from Australia. And she mentioned that Lachlan Giles has a program in Australia where he knows a bunch of, big wigs and really wealthy people. And he's put together this program where he gets a lot of their investment to come in. And there's a criteria that he puts to distribute some of this support to just the Australian elite jiu-jitsu athletes. So obviously they have performed well, great in various tournaments, and there's a litany of requirements here. You got to be clean, you got to, whatever. But they'll like supplement things like flying you to the States or supporting you to some extent, paying for your training, paying for your entry fees, and a lot of this stuff. So it's like the support system. It's really interesting.
Right.
And
I like that.
I'd love to see more of that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think the sport needs that because, imagine if we get prize money like $1 million or more, like you're going to see real athletes.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, look at all the talent that came from Australia. Like I was mentioning, Adele won double gold there, Levi, CGI, even, Lachlan himself, and all these.
Yeah. Australia is awesome for jiu-jitsu now. I think it's exploding out there. I met a dude that has a gym. He has like a Gracie University Academy there. The dude has over 1,000 students in Australia. Wow. Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. That's like Taekwondo numbers,
I know.
People don't realize that here is like those Taekwondo places, they do really well, man.
Tell me, I met some people, man. I met a guy once, he had 100 martial arts schools.
Holy cow, are you kidding me?
After school pickup and summer camp programs, then they did like some Taekwondo crap. And bro, the guy made like $10 million a year, like insane. But he was all he did was put out fires all day though. He was getting sued left and right for one thing or another.
Of course, all those humans, if you're in the humans business, good luck to you, man.
Right. No, I used to do it. For a while there, for a few years, I kind of took my cues from the traditional martial arts community as far as how to run the business. I did the after school pickup, the summer camp for kids and stuff, and I ended up hating my life. Yeah, I got rid of that program quick.
Well, then speaking of your community, how are you building community? Especially you mentioned the hobbyists, I'll call them hobbyists, that don't want to be ADCC champions.
Right.
How did you foster that? Because it seems like you have such great numbers. Obviously, those people want to be there. I'm imagining your retention rate is probably really well.
Yeah, it's pretty good, the retention. I mean, listen, no matter which way you twist and turn it, it's a revolving door. I mean, people come and go all the time. But honestly, I think it's just people, generally human beings, want to be part of a tribe. It just is that way. We don't want to be loners. We don't want to have no tribe to be able to turn to. And
it's not in our nature.
It's not. So I'm that tribe. I foster that. I want to make that my place be the place where people go for that. People that are like-minded, do something healthy and positive together. We have the coffee shop that enhances that aspect of it. Everyone's really close. We're all friendly. If you're an asshole and you come into my gym, I kick you out. I have no problem kicking people out of my gym. And I've had to do that often. I think it's really important that gym owners do that because one asshole can be a cancer. Like, think of it this way. A lot of instructors, they don't want to kick a guy out because, I'll lose his membership. But you get an asshole in there. Maybe that asshole gets to purple belt level. And now maybe you got your white belts coming in, and who are they looking up to? They're looking up to that purple belt. Now they turn into assholes. Next thing you know, you have a freaking huge team of assholes. Or I wouldn't say huge, a small, crappy team of assholes. You wonder why your students don't stay. So if you're super ego-driven, I kick you out. I don't want any of that. If you are constantly hitting on all the women, I kick you out. If you're a girl and you come in and you try to sleep with everyone, I kick you out. I think that's really important to do.
I was going to ask you what the criteria that isn't, the egregious type of obvious stuff. would be the things to set you off?
Just the things I listed. We have a ton of different types of personalities in the room, and that's fine, but like, just don't be an asshole,
How are you dealing with parents who are, they can get opinionated on
Yeah.
certain things as well,
The parents really love being there because it's not just about their kid. They have a great time there.
The coffee shop must help.
Tremendously, and they make friends. So, like, even when their kid comes to them and says, I want to quit, they're like, no, this is my time. I have fun here. And then almost without fail, I always get the parents to train. So if they sign their kid up,
Yeah.
I give them 30 days free to try jujitsu as like since you signed your kid up, you can train for 30 days, see how you like it. And then they end up training. And then listen, I'm a salesman. That's what I do. I know how to sell. So it's not hard to convert parents over to martial arts students. So I do that. That's how I spend my days, sales pitching people. And it becomes a wonderful thing for families, and that's what I want. I want that family type atmosphere that everybody can be a part of.
Now, you obviously have your, basics curriculum locked, and, you talked about this Blue Belt Bible thing too. What about your intermediate and advanced students? What is that curriculum looking like, or is that more fluid, or what?
Yeah, definitely more fluid. But I am not, a lot of people like to separate like these are advanced techniques and these are beginner techniques. I don't think it quite works that way. I think leg locks are advanced. Just generally, like doing a leg lock is more complicated. Doing like a heel hook is more complicated than doing an arm bar. There's more moving parts. You're moving your upper body in a certain direction while your lower body is doing something else. And then there's several different ways you can lace the leg, ways you can break it. So like that is just a more complicated thing. And no-gi jiu-jitsu has stemmed into this leg lock back take thing. Like most of what you see are leg locks and rear naked chokes. Yeah, you see the arm bars, you see them. I'm not saying they don't exist in jiu-jitsu, but everything seems to lead to the back or the legs. I have students that sort of understand that have a basic knowledge of leg locks. I could start teaching them like complicated shit and they pick it up. I don't do the ecological way of training with my advanced students because they don't need that. The beginners need that because they have to understand how to navigate positions. Like they have to be able to fill in the blanks. But once they're more advanced and I recognize that they're rolling and they kind of know what they're doing, then I can just feed them anything. And then, but there's no strict curriculum with that, because I have guys that have like a Levi Jones style. I got guys that are more of a Nicky Rod style. So, I like to build on what they like to do. I like to build on that rather than sit there and make the Nicky Rod do inversions and backside 50-50 and stuff. I'd rather build on what they're great at. Everybody's it's a little bit more individual, so to speak.
How are you dealing with assuming you even do this? How are you striping no-gi people?
I just give them the belts just like they're wearing a gi.
Yeah. Are you striping them?
Yeah.
Too?
Yeah, so I do have gi classes too.
Right, but I'm talking about specifically no-gi people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. They can wear a gi or they can not wear a gi. I mean, why should we not recognize people for their no-gi skill? Like,
so do you have like a promotion day you do,
Yeah,
and then
we
they
do
all
a
come in? Oh,
promotion
gotcha.
every 6 months.
Gotcha.
I do a
Okay.
promotion ceremony. And I don't promote people outside of that. If you want to get promoted by me, you have to come to the ceremony.
Gotcha.
I had a guy, just promoted him, but he was a white belt for 3 years because he couldn't make the promotion ceremony. All 3 years.
Oh my God. He should be on forever white belt. Yeah.
No,
Yes.
I gave him a 4-stripe blue belt right off the bat. So
Right
I'll
on.
teach people up,
Yeah.
One guy I skipped. This is the only time I've ever done this, but I took a guy from white belt to brown belt once.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, he was a judo Olympian.
Well, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. And the dude was like his by the time he was training for 6 months, he was tapping out all the black belts with a white belt on. it would have been silly for me to give him a blue belt. So I dumped him up to brown because I figured with the judo accolades, it made sense to do. So that was the only time I did that. But I've never skipped a belt. That's the only time I ever did that. But
Now,
yeah,
I've heard something before where people say something like strong people. It's harder for them to get good quicker because they can do things that aren't supposed to work. That can work because they're filling in some gaps.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that if you are, no, I don't want to say not if you're strong, but like if you're in love with your strength, like a lot of wrestlers come in and they're like super athletic and super strong and they use it in wrestling. And it makes sense that they use it in wrestling. But jiu-jitsu is not wrestling. Jiu-jitsu is more kinetic type holds. It's not like this.
Yeah,
I'm not like grabbing you and trying to lift. You
right.
know, that's
Especially
static.
in the gi.
Yeah, especially in the gi. Exactly.
Yeah, all that isometric stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when guys come in with that, where they're in love with their strength, they want to use it. That's just like they're naturally inclined to use it, and I don't knock them for it. It's natural for them to do that.
Yeah.
So they just naturally end up getting away with it in the beginning because they're rolling with guys at their level or maybe even less than them, and they're getting away with being strong and muscling things. And that can be a hindrance to them getting actually good at the game. Jiu-jitsu is like chess. Like if I play chess with you and I knock your pieces over, I didn't win the chess game. I just knocked your pieces over. I used the technique that had nothing to do with chess.
This is surprising to hear from like a guy who's 6 foot, was built like a monster at the ADCC brown belt trials and won it. You know what I mean? It's interesting to hear your perspective. I thought for sure you would say maybe the opposite.
No, because I never was in love with my strength. When I started jiu-jitsu, I never, I came, mentally, I was in a pretty low place in my life when I came into jiu-jitsu. I wasn't cocky or arrogant. I just kind of didn't think I was good at fighting by any means. And I just did what my instructor told me to do.
Hmm.
And that's
So you
important.
were this jacked weightlifter initially
I
before you started.
but I still didn't think that I was particularly strong. Like I just didn't have that in my head for one reason or another. But I am incredibly flexible. So that stuck out more than my strength. And it made jujitsu a lot easier, especially the guard. So I picked up the guard first. Like as a white belt, people were having a hard time passing my guard because I was able to put my foot in places that, people normally couldn't. And I was able to get out of things that normal people couldn't get out of. And that was what I fell in love with, was my flexibility, to the point where my instructor one day told me, like, you need to stop relying on that so much and start doing things that are, more standard, and I did. But now I use my flexibility in conjunction with that really well. And it makes a lot of sense. So I think maybe that's why, like, I wasn't in love with my strength. I was more in love with my flexibility. Then I picked up the guard. So I was always a guard player. I didn't start wrestling until I was a purple belt. Then I started picking up wrestling. But, my game is not your typical big guy jiu-jitsu game. Not even close. I'm more of like a Levi Jones type player.
So when you do see those like young Robbies, in your academy or something, will you talk to them?
For sure. Yeah. That's my favorite thing to do is coach these guys, these competition guys. So yeah, when I see guys like overusing their strength or overusing their flexibility, address it, but not in a way that they used to. Like back in the day, instructors were mean. They'd be like, "You're only using strength." Like, no, you know what I mean? I'm more like, okay, I try to make it make sense for them.
Right.
So I use analogies a lot, like that chess analogy, because most people think, well, hey, I'm a white belt and I tapped that blue belt out, I should have a blue belt. Which is like naturally what people think. So, I'm like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. I would rather see my white belt trying to use smooth, flowing, technical jujitsu and getting tapped out 100 times in 5 minutes than a guy using brute force, strength, athleticism, explosiveness, and not getting submitted or submitting their opponent. To me, the guy using the technical jiu-jitsu is better, even though he got submitted a bunch. So I use these types of analogies with my students. It makes sense for them, and especially if you're a big, strong wrestler that likes to do like blast doubles and you're just you're a brute, I make them start every round sitting. playing guard. Like you're not even allowed to pass the guard yet. You got to learn, you have to understand what this is. Like the guard really makes jiu-jitsu make sense for people sometimes. Just kind of like taking them out of that wrestling mindset. You have wrestlers that come in that are like technical wrestlers, like guys that learned from really technical coaches like a John Smith or somebody, where they're very technical wrestling, and then their wrestling translates to jiu-jitsu like really well. And I don't know anything. They're just like they pick it up.
Your thoughts on promoting loved ones? It could be whatever, or someone you're really close to, because that can get kind of, you go to other academies and you see the kind of thing. Some of the students will think, one thing, or it could be deserved, possibly, but it can get a little sticky. Your thoughts on that, and have you ever done that, and how do you handle that?
Yeah, well, my wife is my student. She's a purple belt, and she competes though. She went into the ADCC Open in Orlando, the intermediate division, and smoked everyone. To me, competing, it tells me where you're at better than anything. So like, I always tell guys, like, if you want to get promoted faster, go compete. As I can't deny your skill at that point. You're a purple belt and you submitted 4 black belts in a bracket. Well, who am I to say that you're not that level now? Like, but in the gym, things get convoluted because, maybe the purple belt's rolling with the black belt, but the black belt's just kind of chilling, and maybe he's not wanting to train hard that day. And then the purple belt catches him, and then the purple belt thinks he caught him, and then he tells everyone, and things get convoluted. But in tournament, you can't deny it. So that's a big thing. Like, I'll promote people faster, but when it comes to loved ones, I could see where that gets crazy, where like the loved one will get promoted a lot faster because the coach is your brother, the coach is your husband, or whatever. I get it. The only family member I have is my wife that I promote. My kids get promoted under my head coach. I'm not like obsessed with belts. I think belts are kind of more of a business thing. It helps with business. People like to get rewarded for their hard work, and I think it's good, but I'm not like obsessive and ridiculous about it. Some people are. I'm not. I kind of wish they didn't exist, to be honest.
Belts.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the sport would be as big as it is if it wasn't, for belts. And I mean, look at Taekwondo,
Yeah,
karate, or whatever. I mean, it's a fantastic business tool. People obviously talk about the whole watering down and whatever it may be. It's kind of a weird thing to say in that it's such a subjective thing as it is. I mean,
yeah,
it just
I agree.
is.
Yeah, there's jiu-jitsu schools that are watered down, but it also depends on who you're teaching. Like my gi classes, for example. My gi classes are all super fundamental, basic. And I'm talking like how to escape a headlock, this work on the street type thing.
Yeah,
like
self-defense stuff. Yeah.
self-defense, And some guys, that's all they want to do. They just want to come in. They want to learn some cool stuff. They don't want to roll for an hour and a half. They just want to learn some cool techniques and go home, And sure, I'll provide that for you. No problem with that. I have that. And then I also have like high level ADCC competitors training as well. So I can do both. No big deal.
Well, back in the day too, I mean, the numbers were so much smaller. So you could really measure, there was kind of a meritocracy, right? Because it was literally beating each other up, and they're like really beating each other up. And now it's not like that, man, at all.
I agree. When I first started, we used to roll, we would do jiu-jitsu class, right? And my instructor, in our class, it would be some people in a gi and some people without a gi. And Rob would teach a move. He would teach how to do it in the gi and how to do it without the gi. And then he would teach how to do it if there was punches involved. And then when we rolled, like I'd be no gi and I'd be rolling with someone with a gi on. Before every roll, we would ask, hey, do you want to roll with or without punches? And then we would decide before the roll whether we want to punch or not. And I honestly think that's great. I don't think I can get away with that nowadays because people want to do these competitions. But I thought it was awesome the way that was.
Well, it's interesting to watch like combat jiu-jitsu, right? When you have that open hand slapping stuff,
Yeah. I like it. I'm down
It
for
really
it.
changes the game. You're right.
Yeah, it does, man. There's like a ton of things you can't do if there's punches. There's a ton of things you don't want to sit up in butterfly guard. Like that takes away a ton of things right there. You want to be on top, generally speaking, if there's punches involved. Yeah, it kind of simplifies the game, I think. Kind of simplifies everything. That's why I prefer without punches. I prefer to do, because I'm in love with the chess game of jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't really care about it being a fighting art. Like, whether or not I can beat someone up on the street with it just doesn't matter to me. I just want to play the game, you know?
So your thoughts on what makes a great jiu-jitsu student?
Well, it depends. It depends. I have good jiu-jitsu students that are like competition minded, and I have good jiu-jitsu students who just take the self-defense classes. Just depends. One thing is a student that trusts the coach, I think is very important. Do what your coach tells you to do. Like, have faith in your instructor. I like students that, like, you have two schools of thought. Like, let's say I was to teach you an arm bar, and then you go and you roll and you do the arm bar. You try the arm bar, and it doesn't work, and it makes you get your guard passed and you get submitted. Well, you can say, shit, I'm never trying that again. Or you can say, I did it. I got to ask my instructor why I didn't get that arm so that I can get more details. And the next time I try it, I'll actually get it. I like students with that the ladder mentality, that are not going to give up on it just because it got them caught. You know, I don't like students with huge egos that want to fight necessarily. I like students that are in love with the game, that want to continue to get better at it, that train to get better rather than to win in the gym.
That's so important.
Yeah. I like students that pay their membership. That's the
Yeah.
big
Amen.
one. I like students that are loyal, that stick around. And I'm not one of those guys that it's like, you can't cross train. Like, go ahead and train, but you didn't get here by yourself. You have a coach. You have people that helped you on this journey. Give credit where credit's due. I think it's really important. I also think it's important, and this is a big thing in my gym, to pay it forward. I tell all my students this. You didn't get here on your own. When you were coming up as a white belt, there were blue, purple, brown, black belts that helped you get to where you're at. So go find a freaking white belt and help them. Take them under your wing. Like, pay it forward. You didn't do it on your own, so they shouldn't have to either. I think that's another reason why we have great retention, because that's like a good rule in my gym. So none of the like new white belts feel left out or feel lost or alone. They're being taken care of. I think that's really important in an academy. Like, foster that culture is really important.
So then, conversely, what makes a great instructor?
Let me think about that. Someone who knows the game, for one, like keeps up with the Joneses, so to speak. There's a lot of guys out there who are still teaching 1995 jiu-jitsu. That's not fair. That's not what they're here to learn. So you need to keep up with the Joneses. You need to also study. Like, would you go see a surgeon that stopped learning surgery in 1955? No. You wouldn't. You would want to see a surgeon that's up to date on all the medical innovations, right? So I think that's really important. I think as an instructor, you don't want to lose the love, man. A lot of instructors lose the passion for the game, or they'll be teaching class, and you can tell they're not really there. They're thinking about the memberships. They're thinking about what they got to do at home, their wife, and this and that. So I think you got to be present. I think that's really important. And that's something I like to do generally when I'm speaking to someone. I'm here. I'm present. I'm looking at you in the eye. That's really important. I think there has to be a level of just like lightheartedness. Like, I don't think you need to be like you need to scream at your students and be such a hard ass. Like, it has to be somewhat fun, even if they're training for competition, make it fun. Don't take yourself too serious. We're black belts in jiu-jitsu. We do this for a living. Great. I got a friend who is an incredible accountant. Great. Like, he should be like revered for that as well. I'm not betting him because he's an accountant and I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. I think a lot of these people take themselves way too serious, and I don't think that's good to do as an instructor.
You brought up kind of the burnout thing. What would you say to those academy hunters that are hitting that wall?
Delegate. Build instructors. Like, I'm the same way. I don't teach every day. Personally can't. I get burnt out. I cannot teach every class in my academy. I would teach terrible classes, but I have to be able to admit that to myself. So I have 10 jiu-jitsu instructors at my academy. They're all black belts, all very high level, all very good. I make sure they teach the way I want it to be taught. Like to an extent. Everyone's got their own style, you know, their own twist on things, and I allow that. As far as like we teach a certain position every week. We have a new position we teach, or sometimes every 2 weeks. And I have a meeting with my coaches and we talk about what we're going to teach for the week. And I set them off to go do that. I only teach 2 days a week.
That's great.
Yeah. I mostly focus on the competition team because as a business owner, you want to put yourself in the position that you're going to be best at. You know, teaching beginners, although I'm actually really great at it, I can't do that every day. Okay. But I have like my coach Ian, like he can do it. He loves teaching beginners every day. You know, 1 to 2 times a day he teaches beginner classes. And, you know, so I put him in that position. And I think it's important as a business owner. Put yourself in the position that you're great at. You're a business owner. Like you don't want to go invest in a job. You want to invest in owning a company. So don't be afraid to delegate. And you have to make the business to where you can, you know, if you don't, like I could leave for 6 months and my academy will run on its own. That's what you want. It's what you should aim. Unless you absolutely love being there twice a day teaching jiu-jitsu class, by all means do it. But also make it so if you can't be there, it's going to run. I think that's important.
Can you give me like an aha moment, an example? What comes to mind, top of mind?
Well, I've had some aha moments when it comes to advancement in jiu-jitsu. I remember as a blue belt, and it might not even make sense, but like one day kept getting stuck in bottom side control. And I was like, I can't, and I'm, you know, booking and trying to get out, like using aggressiveness to try to escape. And I was getting really frustrated. My instructor goes, well, get your underhook, you know, the basic underhook escape, right? He's like, well, get your underhook early. If you think your guard's going to get past, just get your underhook preemptively and escape before they settle in. And I was like, okay. And then I started like not caring so much if someone was going to pass my guard. And I would get my underhook and I escape. And then like things started flowing much better with me and I was able to relax more. And it really just like advanced my jiu-jitsu at like an entire belt level. Just from that one like snippet of instruction, you know, that I remember for my jiu-jitsu, what was an aha. As far as like life and my business, man, when I had kids, when I had my daughter, I have 4 kids, but my daughter, I do everything for her. I do everything for my kids now. And it's just not about me. So if I want to behave in a self-destructive way, don't, because it's not about me. It's about them. And that's huge for me. I'm a family man. I love my wife. I pride myself on being a good husband and on being a good father. That's what's most important in life. This business can crumble to the ground tomorrow, but my priority is my family. When I had kids, it really changed me. You know, I messed up so much in my life. It's like I get a chance to not mess up again with kids, you know? So I just put a lot of value, and I'm so fortunate I get to spend so much time with them. I have this life where I have businesses that run themselves, and I get to be home with my kids. I do podcasts and stuff, you know. I count my blessings every single day.
That's awesome.
Because if you don't have that attitude of gratitude, you're just going to be fucking miserable.
Yeah.
Just gratefulness, man. You know, be grateful for the things you have. Instead of worrying about the things you don't have or what you want, or I need the better car, I need the bigger house. It's like you drive yourself nuts that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have a good meal to eat today. Great. Be grateful for that. I have beautiful, healthy children. You know, some people have children that have disabilities and all this stuff. And I'm so thankful I don't have that, you know?
I heard someone once say something like, that people tend to have something that he called life dysmorphia now, it seems like, where they're always thinking ahead of time, like what's in the future, what's going to be the problem. But, you know, 30 years from now, you would have given your entire savings right now to feel like you do right now and to be how you are right now, right?
Yeah, man, that's so true. You really have to be grateful for those things. Consciously, every day I wake up and I think about the things I'm grateful for. You have to do that. And then, like, think about the things that matter. There's so much that just doesn't matter in life. People worry about your image, your clout, your status. It's a waste of
There are
time.
so many things that are out of your control too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And do right by people. Treat people, do right by people. Go out of your way for people. Selflessness. Like, I learned this when I was in the military and I got in trouble for drugs. They sent me to a 30-day inpatient rehab and learned a lot about myself there. And one of the main things that I took away was, if you're feeling stuck, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling anxious, go do something for someone else. Get out of your own head and go help someone. Whatever it is, go find a way to do it. And next thing you know, you don't feel that. And a lot of people, I think, suffer from severe anxiety. I made a video about this when it comes to, and I associate it with more competition anxiety, but a lot of people are so worried about the future, worried about, will I make this money? Or, oh, is my wife going to leave me? Whatever it is, like, you're concerned about in the future, and you're like suffering for something that hasn't even happened. And that's silly. They're just thoughts in your head. And thoughts can't hurt you. They aren't happening right now. You might as well live in the moment, because we're on this earth for a short time. What's the point in worrying about shit that hasn't even happened?
Was there ever a time that you considered quitting, and why?
No. There was never a time I considered quitting Jiu Jitsu, but there was a time where I did consider selling my gym back in 2017. Listen, I made a lot of mistakes with my gym. I'm not going to lie. I made a lot of
I wanted to get into that because it sounds like you're this, you just went from ADCC trials winner to opening up this academy with 700 members. Yay. But as in jiu-jitsu, in our experience, there's always ups and downs and surgeries and injuries and in business the same. So I'm really curious about like those lessons.
When I first opened the gym, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, all I cared about was building fighters. Like, I wanted to make UFC champions, and because I was.
But you opened up and you were, boom, 150 people.
I did have 150 people.
You win automatically.
I did, kind of, but there was a time where I had 95 students. It wasn't just an uphill skyrocketing numbers. I've had pretty low lows and high ups, the whole thing. But I've made mistakes, man. Focusing on the wrong thing. To learn the hard way with almost everything. I was trying to train fighters, and then your casual students felt they weren't getting the attention they deserved. There was a time where I wasn't giving people the product that I promised them, and it's my fault. But if you can take responsibility for those things and fix them, you'll be successful. If you let it take you down, or you deny it's your fault and you just point fingers, you're going to be miserable and you'll never get back on your feet. There was a huge learning curve when it comes to dealing with employees, managing a team. I was having this issue where my employees were turning on me. What the hell is going on? Like, what am I doing? But you learn, what goes a long way with an employee? Hey man, I just want to let you know, you're doing an amazing job. Really grateful for having you. This place wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for you. So I just want to say thank you. Maybe I throw them a $100 Amazon gift card or something with statement. Those types of things are really important for employees. But in my head back in the day, it was like, well, I'm paying you a paycheck. Just go do your damn job. Like, you're doing it for money. Just continue to do it and shut up. But you can't operate that way. So you learn these things, and I made the mistakes. I met my wife because she was a mother that signed up her son at my gym. That's how I met my wife. But she wasn't the first mom that I met, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I made those mistakes.
Yeah, sure. Fishing off the pier. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You live and you learn as long as you can learn. They always say, like, people, the big thing is when you fail, get back up and keep going. It's not that simple as failing and getting up and keep going. It's failing, getting up and doing it differently. Keep going differently. And then you'll have success. I've seen guys fail, get up and do it the exact same way. Just keep spinning their wheels,
Definition of insanity.
Yeah. And it's that, and it's also the idea of be comfortable being uncomfortable, especially in the beginning. Like, there's going to be a lot of things like changing is hard. Changing yourself, doing things differently isn't easy. Creating new habits is hard. It's uncomfortable.
Fear of looking dumb?
Yeah. Especially like that. I have that with my social media. When I first started putting videos out, I'm like, I'm an idiot. There's no way people are going to watch these videos. I am a moron. And, there's the voice in your head.
Right.
But yeah, you got to be uncomfortable. And then, because the reward is so great. When you come out the other side, you learn from your mistakes, you suffered through it, and then you made it to the other side. It's a wonderful feeling. And I think it's worth it. So yeah, man, it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows. Man, I struggled just like anybody else. I just never quit. And I take risks. I take chances. I'll put it all on the line. Because you know what, man? I'm not afraid to be poor. I'm not afraid of it. I've been poor. Like, I've struggled. It's fine. It's like almost this feeling like this is all fake anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a game. Life's a game. Mm-hmm. We're playing the chess game, just like we do in Jiu Jitsu. And, hopefully we make the right moves. Sometimes we get in checkmate. But don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. Just like I always tell my students, don't be afraid to lose in the gym. Get submitted. Take the risk. Do the move you don't know yet. Try it. You might lose. Oh, well. Get up and do it different.
So, Robbie, where can the listener get more information about you, what you're up to, and what are you up to, man?
So right now I am focused on a few things. I am going to be filming instructionals like crazy. I want to put out a lot of different instructionals. I am also filming my content, so I'm making that a huge priority. And I have a tournament that we put together called Mad Assassin, and we gave away $10,000 to the winner. A lot of fun. I just had a blast doing it. I didn't even make money from it. I just loved it. It was fun. And so we're going to do another one of those. I just do a 32-man absolute. That's all it is. 10,000 to the winner. We had a bunch of sponsors come together and put the money up for that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I actually think big things are going to happen with that. And then, I run my academy. It's Gracie Brandon Jiu Jitsu. You can find me on Instagram at Gracie Brandon BJJ. You can find me on Instagram personally at Robbie D Jitsu 83. And I post one video a day on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. So check out my content. If you are a white belt, check out the Blue Belt Bible. It's going to give you a straightforward pathway to blue belt. That's going to be easy to comprehend. So check that out as well.
Robbie, thanks so much for your time.
Sounds good, brother. Thanks so much. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Take care, everyone. See you next time.